Okay.
Good day, good people. Welcome to another exciting opportunity to join us at Lessons for the Journey podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to share insights, information on women's wellness, understanding our whys, and the lessons that inspire us to take positive actions within ourselves, our families, and our communities. Our topics focus on women's wellness, seeing through a metaphysical lens, sharing spiritual insights, and highlights for the journey, and our building healthy relationships. I am your host, Dr. Hetheru, and I will share this space with engaging hosts, guests, inspiring topics for Friday at 12 noon for a transformative 1-hour experience live here on podcast and Facebook. You can expect deep, thought-provoking conversations on self-discovery and personal growth, special guests, locations, events, polls, and thoughts, co-hosts sharing wisdom and life-changing insights, and a powerful blend of spiritual, metaphysical, and wellness lessons. You will also gain tools and strategies to help you elevate your mind, your body, and your spirit. Our show is produced by Chantel Mosley. Our co-hosts are Jada Rains, Maat Sabah, Miri E. Bayou, Nicole S. Miller, and special appearances by Dr. Calvin T. Mann. Our message to you is, if you are seeking clarity, healing, or personal empowerment, this podcast is for you. And we want you to engage and transform, because this is the journey of self-discovery. And it starts now, so we need for you to tune in. We need you to get your equipment. That means your journal. That means your pens, that means your diary, your paper, so that you can be ready to take notes, because today is one of those days. It's going to be amazing. We have a special guest in our studio with us today, so we're going to jump right into it. But I want to make sure that you are prepared, that you really are prepared for the clarity, the healing, and or your personal empowerment. And so with those in mind, I'm going to introduce our topic for today. And I am going to tell you a little bit about who's in the studio. So our topic for today is a word from and for the wise woman, the call. And that call means our calling. And today we have with us Goddess. And if you notice that the women in the studio today are wearing her designs, Goddess wear, I'm going to ask her to talk a little bit about that as we start this journey. But she's going to first tell us about the prophecy of the Goddess. And so I'm introducing you, Goddess.
Yeah. Greetings. I just want to say it is indeed a pleasure and an honor to be here today. And I thank you and your staff. The prophecy was given to me, it's probably been about 35 years ago. I reached a point in my life where I didn't feel fulfilled in terms of the material world. I knew that something was missing. I had everything materially that I wished for and hoped for and dreamed of. But I felt empty inside. I just felt like something was missing. So I started praying and really searching. And during that time, I had I hadn't started, but I had been making these garments from visions that I've had since I was a child. And I wanted to understand why I felt led to create these garments based on the women that I saw in the vision, which I will share with you later. The prophecy came, and the prophecy was that in the day of revelations, the world as we know it will come to an end. In the womb of the goddess, the seed and the vision for the new world has been implanted. She will awaken, and she will emerge, and she will give birth to a new world. She will travel across many nations. She will teach and give birth to a new creation of sons and of daughters who will know love and who will know God. She is truth and she is light. She is the second coming of Christ. When I heard that, it was very frightening to me, because for the second coming meant that what it meant is that the Spirit of Christ was going to rise up in her. And so the feminine aspect of Christ would emerge within women. And so I'm seeing that now. I'm seeing many women, I'm meeting women who, like myself, was searching through prayer and meditation. And this whole concept of the goddess came to them. Because I'll ask them, where did you get that goddess thing? I never heard that outside of myself. I didn't know anything about it. I know there are cultures that talk about the goddess, but the goddess that I talk about is what came to me through my meditation and through my prayer. So a lot of writing, I'm a writer, spiritual garment designer, and photographer. And my mission is to bring the goddess, the vision of the goddess, into this dimension. So women can see her, they can feel her, and they can become her. The goddess is actually, it's our God self. It's who God created us to be. Because what has happened is that we have been living out of a vision created by the world around us. And so when God created us, like everything in creation, it has a purpose. God had a vision in mind. And when we are operating within the vision of who God created us to be, then we are honoring the truth of who we are. I always say, let the hand be the hand, let the heart be the heart. So let us be that which we was created to be, because only then can we feel whole and can we feel complete. I talk to a lot of women and they have really good jobs and they're making good money, but they don't feel good inside. And when you're not living out of the truth of who you are, then you're what you call a lost soul. And you feel lost. And it's hard to explain that to somebody when you're wearing designer clothes and you have a big, beautiful house, you feel like something is missing. I feel lost. And so we are part of something greater than ourselves. We're part of the mind of God, and we have come here. We come from the mind of God. And we were then placed in our mother's womb. So the question that I asked God was, who did you create me to be? Because I've been who my parents wanted me to be. I've been who the world wanted me to be, but I haven't been who you wanted me to be. And being that which God created me to be, I found hidden treasures inside. I feel rich because God is a creator. And being created in the image of likeness of God, I am a creator also. So I create. That's what I do. And that is very fulfilling. I feel whole. I feel at peace. I feel complete because I'm expressing that which needed to express itself within me. And in that context, I feel free.
Awesome. And so I always pitch the first ball to my aunt. So can you reflect on a little bit about the prophecy of the goddess and how you feel about it? How do you react to that when you hear that?
Well, when you talk about a calling, it's something that that I felt I didn't have words for it, and I did not have anywhere that I ever read a book, ever saw in a movie, ever talked to anybody. I mean, there was no visual of it. There was no way for me to define what I was feeling inside. That there were no words. So when Goddess and I met, I realized over time, as we started sharing some of the exact same things, and since then, other women have shared the same. I've always liked loose clothes. My favorite was anything that had a cowl on it, anything that was long, anything that was flowing. I was drawn to that for some reason. Solitude. So there were certain things that I experienced that I realized that other women were experiencing the same thing. And then when I met Goddess, then that word Goddess came. And then when she shared the prophecy, it's like, okay, now this makes sense. There was nothing that I could compare it to. And when you feel these things, it's a call. You don't know how to define it as a call. It's a feeling. It's a stirring inside that you don't have the words for. Yeah. But you can't deny it. You can't pray it away. You can't think it away. You can't cry it away. You can't. It's not going anywhere. You just have to acknowledge that that's what you're here for. And then when you start to embrace it, even if you can't define it, when you start to embrace it, you will draw women of like minds and like consciousness to you. Mm-hmm. So now you can start to identify with what that is. Mm-hmm. So that's how I believe that it happened for me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. Also, for me, I, much the same as my sisters here, I was at a crossroads of my life, and I felt I was grieving. Mine came out of my grief. And from that grief, for me, I took my life. And so when I did that, my prayer to God was that if you want me here, then you bring me back. And then I took my life. And so in the space that I was in, I had no attachment to my body because that was where my grief was held. My grief was held in my body, and it was held in my heart center. And it felt so often like somebody was stepping on my chest and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't take full breaths. And so when I was released from my body, which is what I asked for, to be released from the pain and the suffering in my body, and I was released from that, I still had my consciousness. I didn't have memory, but I had consciousness. So I was aware that I was in a space of nowhere. And in that space, there is not a sense of time. What you have was the remnants of what you believe time is. And so in that space, it was no time for me, but it felt like I had been there for years. And the messenger that was sent to bring me back was the cardinal. And the voice of the cardinal, I followed the voice of the cardinal and came back to this incarnation. I didn't realize what I came back with. And so some people get this same type of insight from meditation and from having that time alone in solitude. For me, it was the extreme. And in that extreme, it was an extreme revelation and my arrival back into this space. And in that arrival, what happened for me was that I connected with my spirit guide, which is the cardinal. And from that, it led me to spaces and places and confirmation because I was not connected. I doubted myself a lot. I doubted what I was hearing. And whenever that cardinal would show up, it would reaffirm what I was given or was thinking. And so my journey of the goddess came through that. And so one of the first spaces that public spaces I went to, which is hilarious because of the two women that are in the room with me now, I saw them. And I had never, the clothing that they had on drew me in. And they were beautiful. They had makeup on. And I was like, well, they must be Muslim women because of, I was like, they're like on the high end of them, maybe, because they were just beautifully dressed. They had on makeup. They looked like women. What you would expect a woman, a holy woman, someone that you could model. And I saw them and I acknowledged them because they were working at an event that I was attending. And that image of who they were stuck with me. And then later, years later, I met them, each one of them, one at a time. And I felt like I had reconnected with myself and my sisters. And so when I think about connecting with the goddess and being drawn by the goddess, it was first that image, because I couldn't think of another word to describe who they were. And so, and that model and the energy that they gave of peace and of connectedness. And they weren't doing anything. They were setting up a table and moving things around and sharing information. It wasn't that what they were doing was out of the ordinary. It was the presence that they had that made it extraordinary. And so, and even before I met them, it kind of put that seeking of that energy, what that was for me, not through anyone else, but what it was for me. It activated me. And I believe that in this season that we're in, a lot of women have been activated. And I work with a lot of women who have been activated at whatever level that they are starting, but that sense of consciousness, that sense of connectedness, and that sense of purpose and direction. And it's almost hard to describe the words, but it is being connected and plugged in, and you recognize her when you see her. And so that's really been my journey in connecting with the goddess and the revelation of the goddess. And so as we talk today, I am prayerful that those of you who are listening will find that sense of connectedness. And we're going to talk about some of the ways that you do it, some of the things that happen to you, and some of the interesting methods of the journey that we explore. And so let's jump in, sisters.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so I'm just going to share a little bit of this overview, and then we can jump into some of the details of the journey. So the concept of a spiritual calling for a woman to action encompasses a variety of beliefs and interpretations, often rooted in religious, spiritual, and or communal contexts. For many of us, it refers to a sense of purpose and responsibility that women feel to use their gifts, talents, and experiences to serve others, make a positive impact on their other sisters, family, community, and the world. And so here's some of the ways that I tried to find some, and we had some discussion around this, so I tried to put them in categories so it would be easier to find. And if you're journaling and you're taking in some of this information, here's some like titles that you can start putting some things under. So the first one was the journey of becoming. And so the journey of becoming the goddess. And so what happened after you had that initial call, that phase or that stage of the seeking of your identity, of the things that started to resonate and start magnetizing to you. Mm-hmm. So if you guys can talk a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, for me, it was a calling to spend more time with God, to create a sacred space in my life where it was just me and God. I started fasting, drinking a lot of water, a lot of salad, mm-hmm. and sitting in the floor and trying to make sense of this whole journey. What was it all about? What was the visions I was having? What was that all about? Wanting clarity and understanding. And so that's where a lot of the writings about the goddess came. So, and wanting peace. The things that had happened in my life, you know, I was angry about it, and I carried so much anger inside of me. And like you, my emotional body, the emotional part of me was full, because I stuffed things for a long time. You know, forget it. You know, forget that. You know, like I'm okay with it. But I wasn't inside. And so I had so much sadness and so much anger from my life's journey inside of me that I didn't have peace, and I felt phony because I had too many material things, and I had to fake it like I was happy. You know, that phony laugh, ha, ha. You know, when you're out and you look nice and everything, but inside you're tormented, you know? And God said on the other side of the pain is the peace. So I knew I had to go through it, which in and sitting with God, he began to show me my life and why I had to go through everything that I went through, what I was supposed to learn through these situations. So it empowered me. You know, I spent a whole year, just me and God. No phone, no friends, nobody. Just me and God. You know, and I learned what the journey was all about and who I was in the journey, created to be and become.
Blessings. Ma, how about you?
Similar. When I became aware that something was different, and I couldn't define it. At that time, I was in a very toxic, tumultuous marriage, and a lot of working full time and trying to deal with 3 children, and it was a lot. And so I sought solitude. It almost felt like I was going crazy, because trying to navigate all of that and still be what everybody expects you to be, and trying to keep all of the balls in the air, don't drop any. But there's this tug that you can't define. Trying to navigate all of that. And then I got to the point where I figured if I didn't do something, then, something's not going to end well. And so I just sought solitude. I made a place in my house that was originally designed to be a bathroom. So it was, how big a bathroom is. What about not even enough for a sink, a toilet. So what is that, about 3 feet by 8 or something like that? Mm-hmm. And I made that into my little getaway room where I could just be still and pray, cry, whatever I needed to do in that space. And then over time, the marriage dissipated. And then I ended up going through a bunch of things, and I ended up having to move back home to my parents' house with my 3 children. So everything was taken from me. I had nothing. I was completely stripped. Nothing. No material things, no money, nothing. But it ended up being a blessing, because that's when all of my writings came through. That's when I could be clear, because I didn't have all of those pressures on me. So writings came, my program came, the product line, everything came to me in that 5-year period of time. I started to meet different people, my people in my spiritual group. And so that's pretty much how it started with me. I had to be basically stripped so that I could be rebuilt. So with us sharing what we're sharing now, mm-hmm. now people can put a word to it. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a word back then. There was nothing to identify from. So I'm blessed about that we can help women on their journey to understand what they might be going through and don't have any way to define it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think about, for me, I did too. I wrote my way through it. I have collections of poetry. When I was making this transition, I did a lot of poetry readings for out there. For you who remember Coffee and Cream, that was my spot. I was there every week just sharing and pouring out, because I had kept it inside and kept it so private that I needed to share it outwardly, to pour it out of me, what I had poured into the paper. And so I have, even today, I have all these collections, hundreds of poems. But that's what helped me to start to find the words and define me. The other part of my journey was that for 25 years, at my birthday, which is between December and January, I would have a retreat. And during that time is where I would pour out. I would cry. I kept sticky notes of reminders of things that I wanted to reflect on and understand. And I would take these sticky notes. And so sometime before there were sticky notes, let me just say that, it was paper. I had all these little pieces of paper taped everywhere. And then sticky notes showed up. And once the sticky notes showed up, my pieces of paper, then I added to the sticky notes. But I would plaster my walls with all of the different things that were a question to me, and then what happened after quite a few years, I started to be able to see the patterns and started putting those sticky notes in groups, and it started to reveal my story and my journey. And so once I would get the concepts, then I could write in my journal. I felt like I could ask the right questions and I would know what to look for, because I had spent all this time, again, in solitude and isolation, putting my life together and putting this journey together. And it wasn't necessarily what was coming from a book, because I didn't find books at that time that were talking about the goddess or this journey. The one book, somewhere midway through that 25 years, I found a book called The Millionth Circle. And The Millionth Circle was a confirmation to me that this wasn't just a phenomenon for myself, that these groups of women, sister circles, unity circles, all the different names that we have for them now, that women would gather together, that they would be drawn together, and that their collective energy would continue to elevate until these groups started to become from few to millions. And we are at that point. And remember that this movement of what we're talking about is global. Yeah. It's not local, it's not regional, it's not just national. This is a global phenomenon with women around the world. And so that millionth circle, to me, and you can look it up, and it'll show you all the different countries where the women are gathering in this way. And it's so powerful to see that what you have been feeling and your insights is a global phenomenon. I mean, in any country, in any space of the world, you find her. You will find her gathering and coming together. The age that we're in, which before, this was a part of that, and we can talk more about that, how the age is accelerating so much of who we are, our gifts, our talents, our abilities. And so much like my sisters here, writing, spending that time in your sacred space, creating that sacred space, whatever that looks like for you, is a part of the process. And that desire to know you, to know God in a very intimate way, is a part of this process. And so for me, at somewhere a little bit past when I got that book was when God called me. And specifically because I asked to have a relationship. I said, I don't want to have a relationship with a preacher. I don't want to have a relationship with a church. Although I work and serve in those spaces, that was not who I wanted to have a relationship with. And I wasn't satisfied until I was able to talk to God myself and have the confirmations and the questions answered. And like God is too, I spent a year and that kind of deep study and profound conversations until and when he called me to go out into the world and do the thing that he asked me to do. And so hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about that too. But so if you have had these same drives or inward calling about what you need to explore, about, what you're committing to paper and meditation and understanding for clarity's sake, getting it down on paper, these are some of your best spiritual tools and practices. And would you sisters agree?
Yes.
Yes. So again, I hope you have your journal. Do not miss the opportunity to get some of this information that maybe have been questioned, maybe have not been confirmed to you. You're not the only one. You're not alone. And so we're going to keep dropping some wisdom for our Ys, our WHYS, and our WISE. All right. And so I'm just going to go and talk about what has been your journey about being different. And even as an adult. So if you may have some childhood examples, but as an adult, how are you different than your peers?
Well, I didn't know for a long time that I was an empath. And the empath is a person that feels other people's pain, and or anger. You could feel it inside your body, and so it made me. As a child, I couldn't play with kids because I was always reading the energy in the room. So I felt like I was always on the outside, looking in at the world. She don't like her. Okay, she wants to be the boss. So play wasn't play to me. I wasn't a person that played. And I've always, as a child, I would look at TV and see what was going on in the world and just cry. And my mother told my son, she said, I never seen a child so serious as your mother. You know, I never seen a child concerned about the state of the world. And when I saw, you know, destruction and everything in the world, I would just sit and cry. And so I was kind of weird, I guess, as a child.
That's a good word for us, weird. Yeah.
Yeah. And I used to get beat up in elementary school. And I was quiet. I was an introvert. And there was a guy that would just stare at me. He was a bully in the class. And whenever he would stare at me and go into a trance, I knew I was going to get beat up after school. And I would get beat up in groups. Like, it would be like 4 or 5 people. I mean, kicking and stomping me. And it's like I didn't understand why this was happening to me. You know, because I didn't talk to him. I just was to myself, you know. But what I learned later is that those that were called for this time to do the work that they're doing, we hold a vibration and a frequency that's different. And we're taught through education that different means bad. You know, circle all the things that go together. So you leave that other thing over there by itself, you know, because it's different. It's not a part of our group, you know. So I think that's, I mean, even within my own family, you know, people would say, you're different. You're different. But what I learned from a friend of mine, because I used to cry because I felt like an outsider, even with my own, not just with the community, but with my own family, is that this guy said this to me. He said, if you take 2 German Shepherds and you mate them and say they have 6 puppies, now you would think the 6 puppies would be of the mother and of the father, right? He said, and they are. But there's always one that is born that is of a higher vibration. And that is the hope for the family. That is the next level of consciousness for that family. And a lot of times that becomes the one that people go to when they're in crisis in the family. Mm-hmm. And back in the day, they used to look for the one, what they call the one. They look for signs in the sky because they look for the one that would take the family to a whole nother level of awareness. So that becomes the spiritual conduit and teacher for that family. You know, and so I recognize that in my own family, that I'm the one, you know.
Right. Your thoughts. Thank you, Goddess. That's so insightful. I'm sure it's a lot of people just free from that. Just free from that good word.
Mm-hmm. I think being, I've always, you know, I could read people's energy. And even though they didn't say anything, I could tell that they had that she's a weirdo energy about them. They would smile and not, you know, on the outwardly treat me any different. But it was that energy. It's like, it's something about her. She's a little different. And so I could instantly read people's energy. Like when I was coming up, I didn't have a big friend group because I didn't like the way people acted. I could instantly read their energy, and that wasn't something I chose to be around. So I had very few and select friends by choice. I always craved solitude, so I kind of helped my own self because I'm okay with not being around a lot of people, not going to parties and functions and things like that. You know, just put me in the cave. I'm great by myself. So, you know, that was different because I didn't really want to be around people. It's not like I had an issue with them energetically. And it's just, it didn't feed me. It did not feed me energetically. So I didn't see the point. It was more painful to go to these things than it was for me to not go. So that was something that I experienced. And sometimes, you know, when they call a person the weirdo, I said, I wrote an article and it's called A Black Sheep or Messenger, which one are you? So usually the black sheep in the family is the weird one. It's the person that people don't realize have the gifts. It's the people that the family members don't realize are the healer in the group. That is the teacher for the family. So, of course, we weren't, in our day and time, that's nothing that we knew anything about. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a book to teach. It wasn't on TV, anything like that. So now we're able to define it. But as time has gone on and I become okay with myself and not trying to fit into I'm a round peg, I'm not trying to fit into the square hole anymore. And I'm comfortable with it, and I'm comfortable with myself, and I don't have to people please. For people to like me, I'm okay if you don't. Mm-hmm. That took a lot of growth, because that's something that, as the weirdo, as a different one, that you eventually, hopefully, will get to the point that you don't need to be liked and accepted by people and try and be part of a group that you're not made to be in. Mm-hmm. So
that's so powerful. I think about my childhood, because I came from a big family, so I always had people around me, but I always felt different. I always felt, and I was, just treated well. So as the middle of 7, right, I'm part of the oldest group and I'm part of the youngest group. So just that space in the middle made me different in my family. And, I can remember those times where the common thread, and this was my mother. She used to say 2 things to me. One, she used to tell me I had to be the bigger person. And the second thing she would tell me was that I had no common sense. And after hearing that for a while, I was like, well, isn't that a good thing that I'm not common? And I think she stopped saying that to me after that point. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I knew that I was different when I went through school, elementary, middle, high school. I was different. And I accepted me even when other people didn't. I had circles. I had my first sister circle in between middle school and high school, and that was some of the girls in my neighborhood. We have dance group. We did routines and all that kind of stuff. But that it technically is a sister circle, and so I have been in circles all of my life, and I still feel different. But I accept who I am in that difference. It's just an addition to wherever I am. And it doesn't take away from anyone else. I just know that my place is that weird, odd, different energy that is for me, that is redeeming. And I know when I'm in a space, and especially if it's not, it may not be a comfortable space, but that's not all me. And I realize that if I'm supposed to be in this space, I'm in this space, regardless of what the emotion, and recognizing that is not always my stuff. So sometimes I can make people feel uncomfortable and not say anything, just showing up. And so I'm like, okay, God, this is where you want me to be. If you want me to be here, then I'll be here. And whatever energy I'm feeling coming back, because it's always this misjudgment. It's a judgment, but it's always a misjudgment. And you can feel that, and you can feel where it's coming from in the space. And I say, I am going to continue to let my light shine. I'm not going to shrink in a space that I'm supposed to be here for, even if it's just holding the intention for the space and the people in it. And so I recognize that often it's not what you say, but it is what you're doing energetically in that space. And so I feel honored to be the vessel in those spaces, and it helps me to affirm where I'm supposed to be, because I couldn't be here if Spirit didn't want me here. And so as I continue to grow in that space, I see my difference as the difference. And so, and which brings us to a good next topic, listening to Spirit. How do you listen to Spirit, and what has been some of your those opportunities that you've had to listen to Spirit that is guiding you along this journey?
Well, I am a visionary. And so Spirit works with me through visions. It's like a movie that plays in my head. So I've seen things since I was a child, and a lot of the visions have come to pass, so, and sometimes it's a thought that comes into my mind. And what's interesting is that when Spirit speaks, it's a soft, comforting voice, and it always repeats itself. And that has saved my life. it'll just keep saying, and some people don't recognize it's like if they're talking and to somebody and they hear a thought that says, you should go back to school. It'll keep coming. You need to go back to school. Like doing photography, it probably took me about 5 years to even commit to doing that because I was already sewing. I used 10 yards of fabric. It's like, I can't afford photography, And then my husband at the time was like, you don't want to get into that because that's expensive. And I said, yeah, right. And I didn't for a long time. But that doesn't mean that the thought didn't go away. As a matter of fact, it gets more persistent, do photography, no, So I've learned now that I'm older, when that voice comes, to go, okay, because I'm going to end up doing it anyway.
Yes.
And the only way you don't do what God is leading you to do, once you develop an ear for God, once you say, God, I'm here, talk to me, I would have to turn my back on God, not to do what I'm being led to do. So, and I can't do that. So I have to say, okay, and do it.
And how do you know when Spirit is talking to you?
Well, like I said, I know the tone.
Okay.
And like people will say, and it's funny sometimes, because sometimes, people calling it downloads now. Mm-hmm. Whenever you hear something, you go, ooh, 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 like that. Mm-hmm. It's not your thought.
Right.
Because when you're thinking, you're consciously thinking like, but this is something, and then people say, something just came to me. And I go, yeah, where did it come from? I had an idea for some pants, but you was asking God, I want to start my own business. Well, maybe those pants are the business. I just had an idea, and then you don't do nothing with it. And then, somebody else picked it up. It's a funny story. Was it Michael Jackson? He was on a talk show, right? And he would have a hard time sleeping at night, which sometimes the Holy Spirit will just keep that door open and stuff just be jumping, like do this and do that. It just gets busy sometimes. In the spirit realm, you have all these ideas, right? And so you can't sleep until you write them down. And so Michael Jackson was saying he couldn't sleep. He was having issues with sleeping because he was getting all these ideas for music. And he said, well, why don't you tell God to give them back to you in the morning? He said, no, because then Prince will get them. So when God sends you something, it's not just for you. It's for who's ever receptive to divine guidance.
Yes, absolutely. How about you? How do you listen to Spirit?
Typically 2 ways. Audio, just like you're talking to me, we'll have conversations back and forth. And then it depends on what it is. Let's say, for instance, I get told to do something. I had been praying about how to resolve a situation, and Spirit would tell me, and then I didn't do it. And I might get told a second time, still didn't do it. I'm still asking for help for this situation, because see, at the end of the day, I don't want to do that. Tell me something that I do want to hear. And so what I was told to do wasn't working for me, because that would involve more work than I really wanted to do. So after the second, or maybe about the second time of being told, when I would ask again, I didn't get an answer. It would just be a feeling like, how many times I have to tell you? I already told you, you're clearly choosing to not do it. So, when you get tired, maybe you'll listen. It was that feeling. So I get the audio and then I get the feelings as well. Sometimes there have been times that I was, asked for Spirit's interaction, because there's times that I would ask Spirit and I hear nothing, like crickets. And then I realized that I have to pay attention to the feeling and not the words. So I'm comfortable with the words, but sometimes I have to hone the skill of being able to identify and define the feeling that I have, which is still, the words is still an answer. So I think that there's different ways that people get that they connect with spirit based upon maybe the level that they're at. When you are just learning about spirit, people always call it something. Something told me to. Something told me not to. And they don't know how to put a word to what the something is. And when you first start learning about spirit speaking to you, it's always soft. But when someone speaks to you in a soft tone, you have to strain to listen to it. Once you get comfortable and learn that you're building that relationship by training yourself to listen, then it will become louder, and it will be as just as if we're talking, because you've trained yourself to listen when spirit speaks. So that's been my process. Now I'm transitioning more to the feeling, which makes me put more energy into paying attention to the feeling that I have and coming up with what that feeling means. So, and that's been interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So often for me, spirit is speaking, and often it's a messenger that is confirming it. So I might hear something, and it's audible for me too, but it's like on the inside of my ear versus on the outside. So it's not like somebody speaking into your ear, but already in your ear. Mm-hmm. And that's how spirit kind of shows up for me. And it might say, go hug Chantel, because, and it may give me a reason, it may not. Go give Chantel a hug. She's going to be resistant, but take it anyway. And I mean, I have been in the midst of a fury and was told to hug somebody. And I'm like, and my inner dialogue is like, hug them. They did this and they did that and they did this. Hug them. And after that, it's like, I just told you what to do. Right. And so, and I would do it, and some amazing something would happen. The person would have a mental break, and, you know, and just start to share whatever is that is a burden on them. And I've had that happen so many times just by being obedient. I asked you to do this. And so I'm at a point where it doesn't take more than 2 times. I'm working on getting to once, right? But it doesn't take more than 2 times for me to understand what I've been told to do. And then to trust the process. Trust that if spirit is telling me to stand here on this corner until I say move, then I'm going to stand on the corner until I'm told to move. Whatever that looks like to people, I'm waving. Yeah. But whatever, I'm like, okay, so what are we doing now? What are we doing? And so I learned to trust the process, because the process never fails. It never fails. I don't have to fully understand it to trust it. Yeah. And so, and I know that's a part of my faith journey too, is that my faith is tied into my ability to listen and to act versus waiting for whatever. Okay, well, tell me, what am I looking for? Tell me, what's the outcome? How is this going to turn out? Trust the process so that it can turn out. Yeah. And so you don't have to have all of the pieces all of the time. What you have to do is be present, be aware, and be the vessel that's needed at that time. Yeah. And so, and the energy will give you the sense of fight, flight, stand. And that's what I also use as my confirmation. And the other part, of course, my spirit guide will show up and confirm it for me too. If I'm really I don't really know, should I trust this? I'll either hear the cardinal, it will fly by me, the car, somebody will call and say, I saw your bird. Like, it's going to be confirmed. It's going to be confirmed. I have these stones in my yard that have a cardinal on it. And, and I put that there just to honor my ancestors, really. And so even then I'll come out and I'll say, okay, if my eye is drawn to it, it's like, okay, ancestors, I hear you, I feel you. And so, I acknowledge you, and then I go about my day. And so, but for me, it is the listening on the inner side of me. It is the trust in the process, and it is the confirmation. So that is part of my process. So, last one, we have a few minutes left, but I want to talk about spiritual tools. Spiritual tools. Can we, you talked about a few of yours, Goddess, the writing, the photography, the design, the visions. What are some of your other spiritual tools that have been developing or you've been cultivating over the years?
One of them is listening for what's not being said.
Ooh, that's
You
good.
know, words are very, really inadequate. You know, because how people use words, sometimes they can't really express things the way they want to. And doing circles where people are coming together and we're sharing, especially when I worked in the shelters, I had to listen beyond the words. And as women, we like to talk. So I learned to be quiet and pay attention and listening. So a lot of times young people say, you're listening, but you're not hearing me. So I'm learning to listen and to hear for what's not being said. But sometimes they're trying to say it. And I'll repeat it back to them. Because in order to help people, we have to be able to listen in the spirit. Because we have to meet them where they at. And the only way that we can meet them where they at is that spirit has to tell us where they at. By moving beyond the words.
Oh, that's powerful. Yes. Ma'at, how about you?
I don't
Your
know if
spiritual
you would
gifts.
Consider this gifts or tools.
That's well, tools, gifts, interchangeable.
I don't know what came to me. I don't know if I would call it a gift because it doesn't feel like it. Is surrender. Because when Spirit tells you to do something, you really do have to surrender to your ego and your humanness to be able to do it. And unfortunately, I've been defiant all my life. And so learning how to surrender has been a really interesting experience. But I realized that I can't be completely used if I don't completely surrender. I want to do things my way. You know, we all have, if everybody's going to be honest, we have control issues. And I think I know the way something's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So even though I might be told something, but I can do it this way and it'll be better or to be easier. That's not surrender. The surrender is do what you are asked to do in the way that you were asked to do it if you were given that method. If you weren't given that method, then you go to Spirit and you get into a space to find out what that process is. And then when you find out what that process is, then do it. How many times have I been told to get an exercise regimen or change my dietary habits or those types of things? That's surrender, but it's for the collective. It's not just for me, because we're here to bring a message and assist mankind in elevation and growth on some level, individually and collectively. But if we don't listen and we don't surrender that the human part of us, then we can't be you're not you can't be used as effectively as you could if you were to be completely obedient.
Yeah.
So tool, I don't know, but that's what I heard.
Yeah, definitely it's a tool.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we're going to have Goddess is going to read part of her Wise Woman, Goddess.
Well, I wanted people to understand before we end this session about what the vision of the Goddess is as it was given to me.
Okay, please.
To be a goddess is not a religion. It's a state of being. It's a movement and awakening of the Spirit of Christ in the hearts and minds of women. It's women in touch with their spiritual and creative gifts, empowered with a vision to use those gifts to co-create with God a new world. To be a goddess is to always and in all things to remember, love, and parentheses, God.
That's awesome. That's powerful. And so for those of you who are on this journey and you believe you are on the Goddess journey, I want to make sure that you have information to contact the Goddesses here in the studio, that there are a lot of ways to connect. And sometimes where you are on this journey, it's important to connect with that energetic system that's pulling you closer. so that you have questions. You can ask questions. If you need direction, you can find it. And this is your tribe. This is your tribe. This is that millionth circle that we are building across the world. That energy is already connecting and connected. We just have to align for that so that we are able to enhance our gifts. Because when we come together, if you're together with your circle, you know that when you're in that circle, that time, something happens with time. It's not time as we know it. It's that time that you're spending together, and it will automatically start you. It will take you to that crescendo, and then you will know when it's time to release and exit, right? There's a timing that is energetic in this process when you connect with your sisters. So I want to make sure that we share information. So how can they reach you, Goddess?
Well, they can email me at goddess, GODDESS, GODIS @yahoo.com.
Okay. My
website, relationshipfirstaid.com. Email address, relationshipfirstaid@yahoo. And Facebook, Instagram, same thing, Relationship First Aid.
And I am Dr. Hetheru. I am the Goddess as well. You can reach me at www.yourinspiredjourney.com. That's yourinspired with a D, journey.com. And you can reach me by phone, 313-759-7855. And we're going to close with some reflections. And I want you to write this down as well. This is your reflection for the day. Ma'at is going to share with us one of her Ma'at memos, which are also available to purchase. These are reflections that help you be guided through this journey, and questions that you can ask yourself and ask others too, for that, especially when you're doing groups. This is a great tool to use. We use them at conferences too. So
you all going to pull one?
Okay. Chantel, can we put one for you too?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
Anybody want to go first? I'm sorry. Let Chantel pull her own. Here you go. I'm sorry. Pull your own.
This was good.
Yeah, pull your own. They're all good. You can't go wrong.
No.
You can't go wrong. Okay. Chantel, you want to go first? And this is our producer. We pulled her from behind the scenes to answer her reflection.
Hello. Okay, so mine says the best way to cheer yourself up is to cheer someone else up. And I find myself doing that a lot, whether that's just cracking a joke, showing up, checking on someone, even if I'm not always at my best. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And you can also connect with Chantel on her podcast every Thursday at 1:00, One Step Closer.
Yes, One Step Closer, Thursdays at 1 on Podcasting Network. It's about getting one step closer to your goal, dreams, aspirations, etc. And you're closer than what you think.
All right. Blessings. All right. Mine says confront your fears. Confront your fears. I think about confronting my fears as the space that maybe some spaces I don't feel comfortable in and I need to go anyway. And so that is that's how I confront anything anyway. I'm very much one that does a lot of reflection and asking my whys, my WHYS and my WISE. So those things that I need to have wise counsel for is what I mean by that as well. So confront your fears.
Oh, me? Show respect for others' opinions, even if you don't agree with them.
Ooh, that's big.
Ooh.
That is.
Yeah.
That is big.
I mean, when it comes to communication, a lot of people want their opinion. They want you to accept their thoughts and their opinions, but they don't necessarily want to be open to yours. And so that's where you get discord. Instead of respecting where a person's coming from, you can agree to disagree and move forward.
Got it?
I like this one. It says, always make your performance bigger than your applause.
Oh.
Yeah, and being a spiritual fashion designer and doing shows, it's always important for us to leave it to give all we can while we're on stage. So yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Nice. These are good, Miss Ma. These are definitely good.
Yes, yes. There's such a powerful tool. Like, this is a spiritual tool. This is a great spiritual tool for reflection. And when you don't know what to say, or you don't know what to do, or you don't know where to go, I find that these are very helpful. Like when you have that thing that's stuck, because Spirit is always working in our favor. Spirit is always guiding us and directing us. We're not always listening, but I want to make sure that people understand this. There is no wrong way. It's either the long way or the short way. Spirit gives us the short way, the most efficient way. What we do is take the long way around, right? Sometimes it takes us years.
A few times.
It takes us years to get there, but you get there nonetheless. But you get to do what you were called here to do. We may not agree with the amount of time that we have to do it, or that others. And as all of us today, well, the three of us in the studio today are acknowledging today and tomorrow losses, and not necessarily while we're all wearing black, but it just I wanted to wear my goddess wear. I haven't worn my black in a while, so I wanted to wear it, but because I'm always in green. If you see me in this work, I'm in green because that's where I've been elevated. But as we close today, let us acknowledge those of our ancestors that have gone before us, those who had the knowledge, that whether they were able to verbalize it or not, passed it down through our DNA. What they could accomplish in their journey, they did, so that we could pick up and carry it to the next generation. So I want to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge those who are out right now grieving the loss of loved ones, whether it's family, friends, connections. I want you to recognize that grief is a process. Grief has a process, and it does have it has an end. It may not be the desired end that you want, but do work through the process and trust it like you do any other process. Grief is a way to get our attention. It is a way to help us to recognize mortality. It's a way for us to be grateful for those who are in our lives and our presence. Be thankful and act accordingly. Know that they are in our lives for a reason, for a season, or a lifetime. So, and I also want to acknowledge those families, especially those friends and family of ours that we are celebrating the lives of who has made their transition. And I'm choosing to celebrate instead of grieve. And I know that that's a place that you get to, but for me, being on the other side and returning, it's a different perspective that you have for life, and that it, as in all things, has its journey of, in this incarnation, an end, but the energy that is remaining never ends. And so we're constantly connected to our loved ones. I'm constantly connected to my father, and when I think of him, when I want to be in his presence, I just talk to him. And it comforts me to have that opportunity, that he's only a word away. He's only a space away from me. And so I think that's important. And if my aunt or goddess, if you want to make a comment or acknowledge somebody, because we're all in this space together here today, if there's somebody you want to offer condolences to, or how you may address it and how you want to, the last words that you want to have.
Yeah, I see, I know that spirit is a continuum. It's not an end, that we are not our bodies, but we are spirit. And it's just important to see the message that life brought to you through how they lived or things they said. So at this time, I recently lost a good friend, and I just reflect upon our journey together and the things that she taught me. The messages, and just in her beingness, what she taught me. And all I can say for her is thank you and job well done. And I'll miss you. But like you, I can speak to her in my dreams. I ask her to come in my dreams, or any of my family members to come in my dreams. And I have wonderful times with them. And I wake up really feeling joy in my heart that I seen my mother last night, or talked to my father the night before.
Yes, thank you. Ma, your thoughts?
Just the knowing that they are always around us. even though you can't see them, they're always around us, and that brings peace. And you can ask for them to come to you. Like I dreamed about my dad two nights ago, and my brother's on my what do you call that when you open up your phone? The home screen. Right. Yeah, he's on my home screen. So every time I open it up, I say, "Hey, Mike," you know. Mm-hmm. So just think about the good times and focus on the love. I don't focus on their illness and how they left here. I focus on the love that I have for them and the fun things that we did and the fun things that they said, the lessons learned. That's what I focus my energies on. I don't want to feel bad when I think about the people that I love, mm-hmm. and the painful part. So just holding on to they're always around us.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to close us with, if you can pull up the Fatherhood Awards brunch.
Yes.
So as part of our collective, we have a Fatherhood Awards brunch coming up on a Saturday, June the 21st. This is an opportunity to acknowledge the men who are fathers in your life. That could be a son, that could be an uncle, a godfather, a neighbor, that man who may not regularly get the opportunity to be acknowledged, especially in public. So this is a brunch. The tickets are $20, and we want to make sure that we are lifting up our men. With women elevating, there is often this dividing line that is competitive in nature, and that is not the energy that we're sending out. The energy that we're sending out is we want to uplift the men, especially those who are built to last, which is our theme. Those who are built to last, who have given and stood up and stepped in where they were needed, because we need more fathers in our journey, in our world, in our families. We need more fathers present to help us to navigate, because we have high energy from mothers and the women. We need that balance. And until we get to the balance, we're going to be out of order. And so as women are elevating, we're elevating so that we can pull that balance together. That's part of our role, right? Part of our role is to help meet. That is not the weaker, it is the balance. And so that's what we're doing as women, because we have to pull so much harder to get our masculine energy balanced. But at this event, we are lifting them up. We are acknowledging them. We are honoring them and their space in this world as well. So join us. You can get your tickets from my website. That's yourinspiredwiththedjourney.com. That's Your Inspired Journey. Acknowledge the fathers in your life. Ask them to come with you to this brunch. Have some fun. Lift them up in a way that is going to fill their hearts with joy and the pride of being a part of our families and our communities. Let's keep it going. Also, we have the Juneteenth parade and celebrations coming up. Find your space. Acknowledge your culture, and let's continue to build and grow. We will see you next time. Stay clear.